Eric Averill, and I'm joined by my partner Brandon Averill. Today,
Disclaimer: Eric Averill and Brandon Averill are the co-founders of AWM Capital. Due to industry regulations, it's essential to explicitly state that investment or strategies mentioned on this podcast may not be suitable for you, and you should discuss your specific situation with a qualified, certified financial planner. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of AWM Capital or its affiliates. For more information, visit athleteceo.com.
hey there, Athlete CEO listeners. I'm your host, Eric Averill from Athlete Wealth, and you're listening to the Athlete CEO podcast. Each week, we aim to bring you world-class interviews with some of the brightest and successful entrepreneurs, athletes, and business minds today, sharing actionable insight on how to get more out of your business, finances, and life. You won't be hearing any vague theory or strategies from us. Our guests have walked the walk and are committed to sharing the best of what they know so you can apply the lessons they've learned. Whether you're an athlete, entrepreneur, or just looking to hear from some crazy successful guests, this podcast is for you. Now, enough with the intro. Let's dive into today's show. Welcome back, audience. I'm excited for you guys to listen into today's show where I sit down with Kyle Mauch, the founder of Athletes Brand. Kyle has become a close personal friend of mine and has not only shaped the way that I'm thinking about business, but life in general. And so I'm excited for you to hear Kyle's own story from former professional athlete to starting not only one, but 4 different companies, and his life vision to help 10,000 athletes create a legacy beyond the game. For the entrepreneur, we dive into how do you know which opportunities to pursue without getting distracted from your ultimate mission, how one conversation with Elon Musk has completely changed the way that Kyle's thinking about business, and why he's made the decision to move beyond just being an apparel company to become a storytelling digital agency. And for the professional athlete, we dive into what does it mean to create your legacy and why it's important to do that during your career, not only to make yourself more attractive for endorsement opportunities, but really to set yourself up for an entire life full of meaning and purpose. And so without further ado, I hope you enjoy my conversation with friend Kyle Mauch.
When you're in that position where you're looking forward to building your dream home on a golf course, and retiring and living that life, like it sounds so good, but you just spent the last 30 years of your life, working towards a goal.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, boom, you're retired now. What's your goal? So if you don't have anything set up in mind as far as just something, it doesn't have to be charity, it doesn't have to be a business. It could be your family, it could be something, whatever it is though, that is something that you're passionate about, something that you're good at, and something that you can have be a long-term goal. Like the way I kind of put it for when I'm working with players is I try to find, first of all, what are you passionate about, and that usually stems off your story. So I'll walk the guys through to try to figure out what their background is. What are 5 things that were like the best memories of your life as far back as your earliest memory you can think of, and to today. What are 5 things that are the worst memories of your life, all the way back as far as you can remember to today, and try to build that into, all right, well, this is who you are, because most people don't understand their own story.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that until somebody else starts telling you about yourself, and you're like, oh shoot, okay, I get that is that way, or people discover that they have an accent from somebody else telling them it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You don't discover it when you're living it sort of thing until you kind of think it through from a bird's eye perspective.
Yeah.
So finding that story can allow you to figure out what basically your relevant value is, a thing that you can really connect with tons of people from. Then knowing what your passion is can kind of stem from that as well. What do you actually care about?
Yeah.
You can't just randomly be passionate about cancer, unless you've gone through it, or if you've had somebody else go through it, or know somebody that you care about that's gone through it. Yeah, you can want to end it, you can want all those things.
Yeah.
But you're not going to dedicate your life to it
For sure.
unless you've had an experience that's made you want to get there. So that's what we try to find is that, and then that'll lead to that purpose and combining your passion and your purpose and your relevant value, the thing that you're actually really, really good at.
Yeah.
That's where somebody can figure out what their legacy is. They can retire and not have that massive identity crisis that is inevitable.
Yeah.
You know?
Inevitable.
It is. Like Jerry Rice, best football player of all time, arguably. He went through 5, 6, 7 years of a huge identity crisis. You know, he didn't start snapping out of it until Dancing with the Stars. Then all of a sudden he's the TV host on NFL Network and ESPN and all this stuff, and has a new career now. He didn't know what to do afterwards. He was still thinking he could play in the NFL. Like, probably could.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you see that transition. It doesn't matter if it's guys like us that played D1 and then, you know, had a cup in the minor leagues, or it's a Hall of Fame career. I mean, we see it, and it's a big reason we launched this podcast, and our tagline for our wealth management company that we own is Build Your Legacy.
Cool.
And that's the whole thing is we manage money for highly successful professional athletes and business owners and entrepreneurs. And the one thing becomes very clear, like once you have money, it's the whole significance conversation. It's, you know, for most people, they're so busy just trying to have enough, you know, at the end of the month to put the food on the table that they don't really have time to have that significant conversation. But very early on, a lot of these athletes do, and they're all of a sudden, hey, I'm not fulfilled. I have all this cash, you know, I built the dream home, you know, but then it's just like, this can't be it. You know, I think of a few of the stories of there's a Tom Brady interview after, I think, his third Super Bowl, where he just said, like, this can't be it. You know, it's fantastic. And obviously, here's a guy who's still in the middle of a legendary career. And then one of the best interviews, and I heard this when I was still playing, was Steve Nash. Somebody interviewed him, I think it was a Sports Illustrated one, that asked him, if you can't mention basketball, you know, what would you say was like your definition of success? How did you contribute to the world and you can't say basketball? And I'm like, man, but that self-reflection is very difficult to have. We had the owner of a company called Lumberland. They do the bat mugs. Yeah. And one of the things I'd asked him was like, what's been the biggest value add that you've done? And it was literally something as simple as just journaling, like self-reflection to try but we don't self-reflect. We don't know our own stories. So that's awesome that you guys are doing that.
Man, that's the same exact process that I went through, and I would have done it if I didn't go through an injury. Like, yeah. Because I was at the point to where I'd never once thought of anything outside of that one goal of being a pro baseball player. You know, like, as a kid, my dad played pro ball. Like, both my brothers played college. It was one of those things where it had no choice in my head. Like, that's what it was going to be. Yeah. And I got hurt and went through this kind of period to where it was 18 months of you couldn't do anything. Like, I couldn't work out. I couldn't play golf. I couldn't do anything. Yeah. And I never would have discovered that kind of thought process of, okay, well, shoot, like, what if I don't come back and pass my physical? You know, what can I do now? Because I was working for my brother at the time. I loved, like, entrepreneurship. I just wasn't passionate about real estate, and his company was a real estate, like, tech company, and I couldn't find that love there. But I'm still hung up on baseball, and it wasn't until I really had to think through, like, this whole process of, okay, well, if I remove myself from baseball, you know, okay, now what if I were to put my life, like, on the line of what are people gonna say about me? You know, like, I say it all the time, like, what would people say at my funeral? Yeah. At that time, it totally was. He was a good baseball player. You know, like, yeah. There wasn't anything else I could have hung my hat up on. Yeah. And most players don't have the chance to think about that stuff, because especially the ones that have a career in the show, you know, those guys aren't hurt very much. Yeah. And so they don't have time to reflect in that way. And you're never taught that at any point, because people don't think that it's going to help you make it in baseball or football or basketball or whatever the sport is if you're thinking outside the box. Yeah. Like, we had Ashton Eaton. Was it 2-3-time Olympic decathlon gold medalist? Yeah. And I asked him right before the last Olympics, like, have you started thinking about what you're going to do after your career? Because that's a gold mine right there, man. You can't walk into any Nike still today without seeing a big banner of Ashton in it. Right. And he's retired now. And he goes, no, man, I can't, because if I haven't put 1% of thought into thinking about something besides winning a gold medal and how to get there, then that could be the difference between a gold and not qualifying. Yeah. And for those sports, maybe that is the case. I don't know, because it's once every 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think that there's still time for you to connect with other people that can help you get there. Leverage your name. Leverage that brand that's being created around you. Like Nike built a powerhouse for him. Every Olympic commercial he was part of or the star in.
Right.
Every Nike in the world, the biggest sporting brand in the world, you can't walk into without seeing him.
Yeah.
And while he's playing, while he's an athlete, he never capitalized on building his own brand off of that.
Right.
Yeah,
I think there's a fear of, if I start to ask life questions, it's going to make me a bad athlete, right? You hear the adage of you can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Mm-hmm. In the baseball world, there's a large part of the conversation of a lot of your more academic minds don't make it because they start to look at their friends coming out of college that have these great jobs, right, and they're making money and you're grinding in the minor leagues. And so there's this fear of like, if I come up for air and I look around and see other options, it's going to hurt me. And it's part of the reason I'm super excited to have you on the podcast is I think if that's the conversation of thinking, oh, your career's over and what's next, yeah, that's not a conversation. It's a whole different one to say is like, why are you here on earth? What's your purpose? How does this actually supplement and complement you being the best athlete? And you can actually think of the value or the freedom that you would have to compete if your whole identity wasn't tied up in just this one thing, And I think that's where you have a unique privilege to speak into a lot of these guys' lives is it's not a, hey, recognize your career's over. It's more of, in the moment you've been given this platform and this privilege, how do you use it? And then it gives you a little bit of freedom to hopefully be even better as an athlete.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I've learned that I've got to be careful because in my head I'm not thinking that this way, but you got to be careful when talking with players that you don't say that you've got to find your purpose and stuff like this because, while you're playing, your purpose is being an athlete. But that's not the message that needs to be portrayed to them. It's not finding your purpose because being an athlete means nothing. It means take advantage of this platform that you earned. You worked your ass off for the last 15, 20 years to get there and to earn this platform and to speak out about it. It's what comes with the opportunity to be an athlete.
Yeah.
It's what comes alongside that. So it's trying to find basically what can you do to be able to use that platform before it's gone to create, whether it's your brand or your legacy, and not conflicting it with, okay, well, if I'm focusing over here, then I'm saying that I'm not as passionate or I'm not as excited, or that being an athlete's dumb and useless. It's not.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think I spent a lot of time on your 4 different websites, which we'll get into of how you've got a lot going on, which is exciting. But it reminds me of, it's a quote from a high performance coach, Brendan Bouchard, that talks about, it's not about trying to find just one singular purpose for the rest of your life. It's about living purposefully, because you're going to have different stages of your life. And so when you're an athlete, it's, your purpose is to be the best athlete, but do that intentionally and recognize the power that you have. And, I guess that's even a good segue into one of the questions I was going to ask that you hit on one of your sites, was just talking about the responsibility of power and influence. When you're talking to athletes, what is that conversation around power and influence?
I don't want guys to try to be amazing at everything. I want them to find, like I said earlier, that relevant value. So I'll use Tyler Austin as an example. We just did a campaign with him. He's first baseman for the Yankees. And when he was 17, he went through testicular cancer. And we were talking on the phone. It was kind of bantering in different directions. It wasn't, he was talking about doing causes for bullying and stuff like that, which is awesome. But what I've learned over the last 6 years, like doing this stuff, is that you can make a much bigger impact by focusing on one thing that you're really good at, rather than trying to distribute and send money all over the place. And some of the biggest baseball players that I've worked with are distributors. They like their thought process is, well, I don't want to just help out one, it makes me look bad, so rather just do a little bit to a bunch of different places. Which is, it's cool. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But you're not going to be able to use that power and use that influence to really create world change. And I think that every athlete has that opportunity to make world change with just their career. I don't care if you're a guy that nobody's heard of or a 6-time All-Star. You've got this opportunity to create massive change if you can focus in one area. So that's what we really try to find with the player is first helping them understand that, hey, they have a power of influence. That was actually what launched the idea for my company, was talking to players when I was at spring training about what causes do you work with. And the same excuse that I heard over and over was, well, none of them did, but it was that they didn't think that their name was big enough. Like, why would my name be able to push money going to this cause, sort of thing? Or they thought they had to start their own charity to be able to do charity work. And once again, it circles all the way back to just not only misinformation, but no information. Nobody ever telling them that they do have a power, they do have a platform. And usually it's once you become a multi-all-star, you win a World Series, that all of a sudden these guys start like hitting you up with ways to use your platform and all this. You don't know who to trust now.
Totally. It's funny around Tyler, I think of a great sample size of the power of influence, regardless if you're Tyler, who's very early in his major league career. They had the brawl, him and Joe Kelly, and Joe's a client of ours. And but watching how both of them used the attention of social media, Joe and his wife Ashley raised over $40,000 for Mission 108, which is a sex trafficking organization. And at the same time, Tyler raised money on his social media channels. And then the two of them got together and did a little promotion. And just, I thought, look at the power of this, that the attention is on them and they chose to use it for good, right? And I get it, it's the Yankees and the Red Sox, so there's a little bit more attention. But I just thought of when you think you have no power, even when you're, one of 750, you're not Mike Trout or Bryce Harper, Tyler has massive influence, and because you had him in a specific cause that he was passionate about, now it moves the needle,
Tyler wasn't even on the 30-man roster before opening day, right? So Greg Bird got hurt. Tyler gets called up to fill in while Greg Bird's recovering. And for those first 2 weeks of Tyler's shirt campaign with us, it's a rookie that, again, wasn't supposed to be there. And he was on the cover of the New York Post. He was in the New York Times. They're talking about him during Yankee games on TV and the radio, ESPN. Where else? He was in like 15, 20 different news articles as a rookie. And he was doing pretty good. He was leading the AL for all rookies for batting average and home runs and a few other stat categories. And then the brawl definitely helped too with that. But at the same time, he was getting interview questions that weren't even about his 0 for 4 games. He was still getting press about the stuff that he is doing for testicular cancer awareness. And he had one specific goal, was to go get an early checkup. He understood what it was. People could relate to what he was going through. And he took advantage of an opportunity of being a New York Yankee, being a professional baseball player, to create a massive difference, I think, in a lot of people's lives that have, will, or are going through testicular cancer. And he was a guy that was relevantly unknown. You don't have to be Mike Trout to do cool things. Our worst performing campaign we've ever had is a multi-all-star. Like a big name, one of the most beloved players in baseball. And that was the worst performing campaign we've ever had because he's a distributor. That doesn't put his whole heart into one thing. He puts his heart in a lot of things. Great guy. But that's the power of doing that, and it creates a significant brand value as well. And so you're not only benefiting it from emotionally, you're not only benefiting from it by helping others, but you're able, especially these young guys, and they get it, is you're able to create this brand value for yourself
right.
that might not have been there before. And it opens the eyes to sponsors. It opens the eyes to your team. All of a sudden, the Yankees are involved in helping push his campaign.
Right.
They're backing it. Yankees are known for decades to not talk about their rookies.
Right.
You got to earn your way into being a New York Yankee.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Aaron Judge, they've got a bobblehead night for him
Right
after
off
his
the
rookie
bat.
season in spring training.
Yeah. Yeah.
His rookie year, they've got a whole section in right field.
Yeah.
Like, when you're a guy that is not only a great player, but you're also a good guy that that you've proven, you've gone out, you're doing charity work, you're communicating with fans, you're doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
The team earns trust in you, and they can invest into you. And I think that's something that players need to understand with finding what it is that they can do to give back. You're not wasting your time. You're not losing time with your family. You're not losing time focusing on the game or any of this stuff. You're helping create that brand value. It's going to help you stick around a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think something you had said originally was they don't know who to trust, right? Is because a large part of this conversation that we're having is we know the athlete industry is a tight-knit industry, and there's the sports agent, right? And the agent, rightfully so, it's very competitive to represent the best players, and so they're very territorial. And over time, instead of it just being players recognizing, hey, really the value of this agent is their contract negotiation, rightfully so, they've had to expand their services to add value. And one of those that's just gotten lumped in, or two of them, has been, yeah, we handle setting up your nonprofit, and B, we do your marketing. But neither of them really want to do that, right? Marketing really is baseball card deals and some appearances. What they're not doing is what you're saying, is actually sitting down and saying, let's think through the long-term value of creating a brand and recognition above and beyond just making you more attractive to the next endorsement income. And then on the charity side, it's like, usually we'll set up a nonprofit for you, not actually give you any consulting behind it or help you figure that out. I mean, there was an article a few years back that said over 70% of athlete charities fail the litmus test for the IRS. So there's just this convoluted industry, but then you have a bunch of outsiders in, right, who say, hey, brand, we should get you to maximize it and all that stuff. And I think this is a good place to go all the way back to your genesis of Athletes Brand and why I think you're uniquely positioned, because you're from inside the locker room. You've actually demonstrated it building a business. I think that's one of the things with consultants out there, that people that hit you up, I'll help you grow your social media, and you look and they've got 500 followers. It's like, whereas you've actually proven, I transitioned from an athlete, I built a company, I built multiple companies and brands. And tell us a little bit about, we can read a lot on the internet of a lot of your transition, but tell us how you've ended up being successful with Athletes Brand and what is the actual mission of it?
Yeah, no, man. Our mission at Athletes Brand is, the ultimate mission. I want to be able to impact 10 million athletes to find what their legacy is beyond the game. That means that basically I want it to become hand in hand with playing sports to give back. I think it should be synonymous. I think most players agree with that. I got there from going through that kind of process of spending my whole life in sports, knowing nothing but sports, and having an eye-opening moment, like I said, where I realized that, there's so much bigger that I could be doing.
Right.
And it's going through that thought process. And sometimes you need other people to walk you through that. And if we go full circle again, I guess back to talking about where players haven't really had somebody going hand in hand with them to talk about stuff that has to do with their personal life, with having purpose and having fulfillment and that sort of stuff. I think that's a powerful position to be in as an athlete, is to understand where you are, who you are off the field. It's going to help your home life and all that stuff. So with Athletes Brand, that's where we start. We take everything. We use the word family a lot, not because we're this mafia where everybody's part of the family, but because everything that we do, we work with their families. So when we're working with a player and finding what their legacy is after sports and now, we're working with their wives, and we want it to be able to affect their kids. And a legacy isn't something that dies with you. A legacy is something that is passed down to your kids, and your kids passed down. thinking outside of baseball. It's really cool to be the grandson of Mickey Mantle, like if that's the case. But I think it's even cooler to be the grandson of Roberto Clemente,
right?
Because now it's when people talk to you, it's not about, man, your dad was such a grandpa, or your dad was such a great baseball player. It's, man, like that guy changed lives. He changed South America. He changed Puerto Rico.
Right.
Like that's cool stuff to do. Like, so that's what we try to set up, is what's that thing that can create a legacy beyond sports, to where your kids can get into it if they're not a great athlete. Your kids can get into it no matter what, sort of thing.
And I think there's a human nature with all of us, whether you're an athlete or not, that desires for that like purpose-filled life, right? And I think what's really interesting about Athletes Brand is there's a kind of a misnomer, right? Like you're only a clothing company. Right. But with the athletes, I think you've directly been in touch with over 800 athletes, right? And so there's this essentially internal outcry for, I want to be a part of that. And it hasn't been through going to all of their sports agents to get access to them, right? And I think that in a world where it's so difficult to get to the athlete, the fact that you have athletes reaching out to you is just a testament to they want this, Talk a little bit about how you build out that legacy for them. And you guys obviously are a high-end apparel company for athletes, so there is a clothing portion of it. Talk a little bit about why you chose to use apparel as the avenue to really start the conversation with athletes.
Yeah, no, everybody wears t-shirts. It's when thinking through the process of how we're going to be able to take their stories, help them use their platform, because that's what the company was built for originally. It was, all right, players need a platform to be able to prove that they can make a difference. So let's just make it stupid easy for them to be able to do this. Like, all they have to do is give us an idea for a shirt, and then we'll do the rest. So give them that platform, and then all right, now how are we going to carry that out? Everybody will buy a t-shirt. They're cheap. You can buy multiples of them, that sort of stuff. So that's why we went with the t-shirt route. But we've evolved so much over the last 5 years, and that's why we started to kind of put out this stigma of, we're not a clothing company, and I'm using air quotes right now, to where I've discovered that we're a storytelling brand. What we're actually really out, you can ask, like, even Sam Tuivalu just said yesterday that the guys on the Cardinals said that was the most comfortable shirt they've ever worn, but that's not what we're truly great at and what makes us unique. We're great at storytelling. We're great at finding those players' stories and to kind of walk through that process of why that makes us so unique. So, like, I can tell you the exact formula that we use. It's nothing that we need to trademark or anything like that, because I really believe that Athletes Brand is that differentiator and being able to help players get to that point. And that's by starting with finding what their story is. And I said earlier, going through those 5 great things and the 5 negative things that have happened in your life. And that can be anything from when you're 8 years old and you spilled dad's Wheaties to, going through a very, very tough death in the family or something like that. It can range widely. Everybody has different lives. But that lets people open up when you start to tap into those really great things, the things that make you smile. And usually when you're going through it, the really great things will come out into 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. It comes out quick. And then they'll start throwing some good ones in there again as they're transitioning to the next part. So they keep thinking about all these amazing things. They're smiling, they're laughing. They're talking about ideas with their wife and stuff, of things they've gone through. And it's really fun. Then you get into the 5 negative things that have happened in your life. And those usually take longer. That can take anywhere from 30 minutes to a couple hours. Yeah. Because they're really thinking through these things. Negative things, I've noticed, really impact your brain more, and people want to be able to say the right things when they're thinking of negative things. So it gets the thought process going for us to be able to start to figure out, all right, who are you really? And then that'll kind of go through, and usually while we're going through that process, passions, this other stuff like hobbies, all this stuff starts to pop up while they're thinking through those things. Stories start coming out. Yeah. You have to learn a little bit more about them. And that's where it sets up to going into, okay, like, out of this, here's who I think that you are. And so I basically write everything down. I'll go through the story that I guess I've kind of created off of what they've told me over that 15-minute to a couple hour long conversation, and see if they agree. And I don't think anybody's ever disagreed. But basically once they hear their story, it kind of opens up their eyes to, okay, well, shoot, like, no, I get this. And it's not everything, like, here's your whole biography. It's, here's what's marketable about your past. You know, here's the things that the news is going to care about. Here's why they're going to want to share your story on ESPN and Bleacher Report and the podcast and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now it sounded like you love fishing or whatever it is, you know, or you just love hanging out with kids. You keep mentioning kids. Like, is that something that's a big part of your life? And we'll start to discover, like, kids are something that person can do every single day. Like, they could spend time hanging out and playing wiffle ball and that sort of stuff every day. All right, well, that might be the 1 in 100 guys that should actually be out there doing, like, the inner city baseball tournaments all the time, which is typically the players go to because it's relatable, you know. And if it's not, if it's that Jake Diekman, you're going through ulcerative colitis, you know, then that's where we start to steer. All right, well, here's a part of your background, here's a part of your story. And he might have been embarrassed about it because IBD, it was something that wasn't talked about much, that people had, to now telling him about what his story is, all this sort of stuff. I think Tyler Ross is actually a better example, because Tyler was reluctant about doing testicular cancer, but it was sharing Jake Diekman's story with him now. So we've learned Tyler's story. We know that he's gone through testicular cancer. We know things that he's passionate about, things that hurt him, things that excited him. Now we're to the point where he finally shares testicular cancer, and he says, I didn't want to be known as the ball guy. Yeah, I get it. You know, like, you don't want to be the face of something. And I said, all right, man. Like, but here's why that could be really beneficial, not just to you, but to hundreds of thousands of people.
Right.
Now I take him through something that's kind of relatable, which was ulcerative colitis and what Jake Diekman had gone through, and he's raised over $60,000 for his charity. He ended up turning into the Gutted Out Foundation. He ended up starting his own foundation.
Right.
They host a Gutted Out night for the Texas Rangers now. He's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures online of people taking J-Pouch pictures with them, holding up their shirts and stuff that a lot of these people used to be very either embarrassed about or didn't want people to kind of know about, sort of thing.
Right.
But now they're proud because Jake Diekman is a Major League Baseball player.
Right.
And you share some of the stories that Jake had gone through 2 days into his campaign. A mom reaches out and says that she just wanted to thank Jake. And it's on a Facebook DM to us. She wanted to thank Jake for sharing his story because her daughter was in 8th grade and she got diagnosed with, I believe it was Crohn's. And that she decided, she was super passionate about softball her whole life, and she decided that she wasn't going to play softball anymore because she didn't think that she could play with a J-Pouch. And now she's going into her senior season. She sees that Jake Diekman's a major leaguer. She's going to go out for softball this year.
That's
that
awesome.
Little tiny thing, you know?
Yeah.
But that little tiny thing, that's 2 days into a campaign of Jake sharing his story right now, to where he's already impacted one life.
Yeah.
If you can spend 10 years in the show and impact one life to be able to completely alter their life for the better, that's
100%.
a success. Man.
That's incredible. What so how does an athlete engage with you? You know, is this part of the process that becomes the output of using the apparel to raise awareness? Is this completely separate than starting a cause? Is it intertwined? You know, a lot of the athletes are going to be listening to this podcast. They're very familiar with your brand from the awesome event that you put on during spring training here in Arizona, you know, or just from players have seen your brand, you know. How do they actually engage with you? What does that process look like, you know, from a practical standpoint?
No, you just reach out. So it's very rare that we'll go to players right now, not because we don't want to, but because we've got a lot of guys that we're trying to help right now. So if players come to me with a cause that they want to support, we'll make it happen. If they're passionate about it, we'll make it happen quick. If guys just want to figure out what their legacy is away from sports or just want to find a cause, to work with, then I'll do that right now. We'll find time and we'll make time happen with that. And it can go through DMs, it can go through email. A lot of times it'll be a player that we worked with getting my number and calling or texting me about somebody else that wanted to do something. So it's just reaching out. We almost always work directly with the player, just me and them, just because it's easier that way. Whenever we do, I love all the agents that we work with, but whenever we do work with agents, there's usually a little bit more barriers, and understandably so.
Of course.
They're trying to make sure all the lines are right and all that stuff, which is awesome. But it usually does hinder things. It does change the direction of where the player's legacy might come out, what cause we might end up working with, that sort of stuff, and also the release and whatnot. So the way that process, I guess, kind of works from start to finish with the player is that we'll set up a phone call, try to go through that legacy process. B, once we do that, we'll figure out, all right, well, what's a simple shirt that we can create? The more simple, the better. 1, 2 colors, perfect. 3, you start getting a little crazy. Try to keep it 1 to 3 words or just simple graphic. And then they'll give us the idea. And then our art team will go through and design it, send back mock-ups until the player loves it.
Yeah.
We try to do something that is made for the player. We don't make fan apparel. It's the idea of like this Scooter shirt that's coming out in 4 weeks, and we want it to be something that he's going to pull out of his closet and want to wear every day. He's going to want to wear under his jersey or wear during batting practice or whatever it is. We're not thinking with the fan only in mind, sort of thing. So it's fun for him. They need to create a new shirt. Once that's done, then we set a launch date. We get the player's shirts. If he has teammates that want them, we get the teammates' shirts. If he has other influencers like actors or friends that are just big on social media, that sort of stuff, we get them to them. And we do a 2-week campaign where the goal is to reach 20 million people in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we spend during that time every single day reaching out to the press after we've already crafted their story, what's going to be the most marketable piece of all of this that the press is going to want to pick it up, and that's going to be able to help the cause. It's going to be able to help get the players' word out. And we do that every day and start off with local. And so for Scooter, for example, it's starting off with Cincinnati Press, the local TV, local news, local newspapers, Reds blogs, that sort of stuff. And then we go on to whatever the cause is. So then we find every blog and press that might cover the cause. So we have those ready for launch day. Shoot out the press release, email each one of those individually. And then after that, during those rest of those days, is finding national news, following the stories, sharing them, compiling all of that, running ads through the stories, running ads for the page, finding other celebrities and influencers that might have a connection with the cause or just might just be massive Reds fans, and getting them shirts, having them post. So we've literally dedicated those 14 days to that player.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think that's what really separates us. And I know there's one agency that we're really close with that's specifically what they told somebody was that the big differentiator with us and any other brand that does cause stuff is that we do all the legwork behind it. Yeah, the player needs to be posting, needs to be participating, but we're out there hustling for 14 days, doing press outreach, writing press releases, running ads, all this stuff. We're not just posting a shirt online and saying, all right, man, now it's up to you.
Yeah.
Like, we're there alongside you, and we've created a process that works. And at the end of the campaign, and we've got the whole guides, the player knows when to post, all that stuff, makes it super easy for him. End of the campaign, print, ship out all the shirts, send out the check, do a follow-up story on it all. And something that we're going through a shift right now with Athletes Brand is going back to storytelling. So discovering that, that's our strength, the storytelling.
Yeah.
Is that we're turning into a media agency first and a clothing brand second. So these next 3 campaigns will be the last campaigns that we do with players that will just be shirt for a cause, per se. So we're transitioning to basically what we're calling our legacy campaigns, where we're shooting documentaries on the player first. We're documenting the whole process of discovering their story, their passion, their purpose, their relevant value, what's their legacy. and then going out there in the field with whatever cause it is that we find that with, getting their first experiences and all that stuff on camera, and being able to wrap all of this into a story that does two things. One, it launches to the world that this is what the player's doing, this is how he got there. Yeah. And two, this is how you can help as well, and it's also bringing this extra value to the player by getting massive publicity through a story media. And our reason for getting to this point is because a few months ago, I'm like, we've continued to evolve since I started the company. Yeah. I've never had a mindset of that here's who we are and here's who we're going to be sort of thing. We're going to be the best t-shirt company in the world, right, and I'm going to spend the next 20 years getting there if I have to. No, I don't. I honestly don't care about that. Like, right. If you understand what your purpose is as a company and what a specific attainable goal is, yep, then you continue to evolve and shift with your company as needed to get to that goal. Right. So 4 months ago, yeah, like this whole year was planned with intentions of hiring certain positions, with intentions of releasing certain products, to continue to grow Athlete's brand as a clothing company and continue to reach towards that goal of helping reach that 10 million players to get back. So I think 10 million is that's not pro athletes, it's just athletes in general. Like that's that number to where it becomes normal because there's almost 1 billion people in the world that play sports. Yeah. And so when I'm thinking of that in mind, I had to go through a process of, all right, I'm doing all this stuff, and I talked to this guy's pretty good at what he does, and had to reverse engineer basically what we're doing with Athlete's brand. What am I doing? Why am I releasing these bottles? Why am I releasing these polos, these Henleys, these hats, these other things? Yeah. Like, what's the purpose of these? Do those products fulfill what our mission is? Yeah. And when it came down to it, no, a t-shirt is not going to impact 10 million players to find their legacy. Yeah. You know, you're not going to see, I don't care, like my favorite one is Jake Diekman's because of how he's managed it and leveraged it and changed thousands of lives. Yeah. But that's not the shirt that did that. Yeah. It was the story that was put together and the way that story was shared through the shirt, but through all the mediums of the press and the videos and all the interviews. That's what carried it. Yeah. You know, that's why we focus so much on setting guys up with interviews throughout those 2 weeks. Yeah. The shirt's not going to be that thing that's going to impact lives. So then also thinking back, am I going to be able to work with 10 million athletes? No. Right. It's just not possible, you know. And so how can I still reach that goal of 10 million athletes? So we've got to figure out what is it that can impact and influence somebody else to give back or to find what it is. Yeah. And I honestly think it's seeing it with your own eyes, somebody else go through that. So for example, we took a player like with Food for the Hungry over the Dominican Republic and got to watch that player go through this transition. Yeah. You know, go through this discovery of asking, like walking 3/4 mile up a hill and they say, all right, well, this is what 8 to 10-year-olds do every morning to have drinking water and cooking water and bathing water. Like this is their water source. They do this every day up this hill, in the jungle, in the rain, doesn't matter. They've got to do it. And he goes, okay, well, how do we fix that? I'll just build a water treatment center down at the bottom of the community. Yeah. Okay, well, how much does that cost? Like, why isn't there? It's $18,000. Like, yeah. What? It'll impact 5 to 6 generations. Yeah. What? Like when you see somebody that's a peer, somebody that you play with or against or you look up to as a fan, like, and you see them go through that, you can relate.
100%. I think exposure is huge. Mm-hmm. You know, it's what we're doing this off season. We're taking a group of 30 of our clients down to build a home through an organization called One Mission. They're a community development organization, and they're very clear on we're not just a home building organization because their intent is to actually raise the whole community. So to earn a home, you have to do 200 hours of community service. They build the home with us, but that is way more impactful than, like you said, to being just the distributor. Hear me, like donating money is important and very good, and we'll encourage that, but there's that exposure to, oh my goodness, I see this human being who doesn't have a home, and wait a second, it costs $6,000 to build a home. Like, that's nuts, right? I mean, that's what these guys make in 2 days, right? And
it's to taxes,
right? And I think that's not just relates to athletes; it relates to everybody. It's that exposure to the humanity of the world and going, hey, some things are not right. You have a benefit and a platform to be able to make those. And so here you talk about your storytelling and going through that process. What I'm sitting over here thinking is the exact process that you take your athletes through, you've done with your business. And I think a lot of our listeners are not just athletes. There's a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, and this relates to all of us too, right? Is you clearly have a knack for business, is you have Athletes Brand, and then you have Refined Craft, and you have your own podcast, and then I just saw, which I'm super excited to ask about, is the whole campfire mastermind, because I think the questions for you is you're driven by something as well. I read some stats that in your first year you did $100,000 of sales, right? And 5 years later, you're a 7-figure business and you're continuing to expand. But just the credibility of you saying, I'm asking these questions, like, why am I even in business? And it's fun to hear that. And maybe talk a little bit about how it's splintered out into Refined Craft and the mastermind and Success at Success. Like, why are you doing all of this stuff?
I mean, honestly, it's because it was fun.
Every
business, there was a point to where, and a lot of players that I'm starting to talk to that are retired are going through this. You're getting pitched all these business ideas once you're done, because coaches see that you're done playing baseball and you got all this money, so come invest in my business. So guys are putting money in gyms and other things. So what I noticed was during my first few years was that I had a problem. I had a problem of I wanted to help everybody and I wanted to be involved with everything, and it was hard to say no to things. It made me feel bad. So I would start saying yes to everything. I'd be spending 2-3 months focusing over here now, and all of a sudden Athletes Brand starts going like this, just dropping as far as attention goes, as sales goes, growth, everything. Then I'd go back to Athletes Brand once I noticed that. And then I'd have another business or another idea pop up, and start building this website and doing all that. And then all of a sudden I'd notice, oh shoot, now I'm distracted. I spent 6 hours every day over the last 2 weeks doing something that's not what's paying my bills,
Right.
So it was once I got really focused and discovered, all right, what's my actual mission? How do I stay on that mission? And making the decision that I'm not going to get involved with anything that doesn't help me get to that one goal.
Wow.
So this guy that I talked to a few weeks kind of made my mind open up a little bit. Basically said that his companies, he doesn't care if they go bankrupt. These are multi-billion-dollar companies that he owns. Doesn't care if they go bankrupt because he knows what his mission is. He said he doesn't need those. Those are segues for him to get to the end. He doesn't have to get to the end through those.
Obviously it sounds like you have a mentor who helped you think through that process. Were there other tools or books or resources that you would encourage other entrepreneurs or business owners that are struggling with what you're talking about that they can turn to help them, come down to their mission?
Yeah, be humble and ask people. Don't be afraid to talk to people that are successful in things. There's always somebody way more successful than you are in every area of life. So reach out to those people. And big thing with me is I've been going through, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks now.
Okay.
It's funny because I was one of those students of very reading and English and writing, was never great at math. I was a solid C, B student in math and could never read a book and get an A in writing and English and stuff. Through college, through high school, I never finished reading a book. And it wasn't until after I started my businesses and stuff that I started listening to podcasts, because books, I just realized they're not for me, because when I'm reading things, it makes me tired. I don't focus as well. But for me, and other people are different. With podcasts, and audiobooks, a lot of people get very distracted, so they can't listen to them. But that's just how my brain works. But with those, I can listen, I can focus, I can absorb. So I started listening to about 2 audiobooks a week.
Wow.
And that's not just being picky and thinking that, all right, well, this guy might not know what he's talking about, so I'm not going to listen to that one. No, I want to know everybody's opinion. Just don't try to implement everybody's opinion.
Yeah.
Find the things that are wrong and find the things that are right for you in them. And listen to as many business books as you can, startup books, biographies. My favorite one of all time is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Yeah, of course.
And it might be because we're both from Oregon, but but I love his story about him creating something from nothing. During a time where it was near impossible to create something from nothing like that. They didn't have social media and online marketing and all these mediums.
Yeah.
He had to go out and hustle. He had to go out and put shoes in people's feet. And so getting to learn those stories about how other people made it.
Yeah.
I've seen insanely valuable for me. Read Elon Musk's biography, or read Warren Buffett. Like, read all those people that are doing things right. It's like, don't fix the wheel. Go out there and study the wheel.
Yeah. I think it's the one thing you said too of don't live in an echo chamber. Don't look for just confirmation bias of things that are only the way that you view things. Go ahead and challenge yourself, right? That's how we learn is, it's like, I forget what the stats are, but we've got to recognize that most of our perspective on life is through our experience, which is 0.0000001% of reality. And so that the majority is unknown to us unless we do that exposure. And I think it takes that humility to go, you know what? Understand where we're at. There's always somebody else ahead of us, and that there's so much to learn from it. And I think podcasts have honestly been a huge blessing to us in this generation. And I think of athletes or entrepreneurs, you're so busy that to sit down and read a book for a lot of people is just not realistic. Right. But to pop in the headphones and the drive home or on the bus ride, it's like, oh my goodness, I can pick up a nugget here and there. It is huge. How about like for personal development, and this is more speaking to the business owner and the entrepreneur, you wake up, right, there's only 168 hours in a week. You're the CEO and founder of multiple companies. You're involved with individuals who are highly demand a lot of attention and a lot of hand-holding through the process. How have you navigated just personal development of learning to say no, of taking care of your body, travel, all of that type of stuff?
No, it's funny. A few years ago, I was on a podcast and somebody asked me what my morning routine was, and I said, I don't have a morning routine. Like, I just don't. It's like my morning routine is getting up when I need to, doing things and all that. Yeah. And I realized right after that how beneficial it is to have a morning routine.
Yeah.
And so now I do. Every morning I'll get up and I spend about 45 minutes going through a very similar process. I don't have a guide that I look through and follow every single day, but I wake up, I do my morning prayers, I go through and I'll read an article, something online from Mashable or something, something that's not politics, it's not celebrity drama, like none of that crap. Like I don't watch TV, I don't watch news like that. I do watch Netflix, love like movies and stuff like that. But my morning is going through, trying to learn something new, listening to a little bit of the Bible, listening to a few chapters of a book that I'm doing at the time, making breakfast as often as I can. And having that time to myself to kind of think through, all right, here's my plan for the day, and here's what I accomplished yesterday. If you can go through every morning and think back on what you did yesterday that might have gotten you a step further, or things that you can be at least grateful from yesterday, it's going to set up what your plan is for today much better and much more positive minded. So that's the biggest thing, is starting off your morning being positive. Like if you've got an ex-girlfriend texting you, like mute your phone or something in the morning. Don't look at that stuff during that first hour while you're awake. Yeah. Like even if it's your mom, like wait that first hour and then go through, catch up on texts, catch up on emails. Just don't look at it. Because there's certain people that might text you, that might call you in the middle of the night or in the morning, and you don't want to start your day with a negative mindset. If you start your day with a negative mindset, it's so hard to recover the rest of the day from that. Yeah. So starting it off positive, starting it off on your own note, starting it off with getting your mind going and absorbing something new. I think that's the biggest piece of advice.
That's huge. I know, the stats out there are crazy on how many of us, the first thing you grab when you wake up while you're still physically in bed is your phone, right? And information overload, scrolling through Instagram or text messages, or ending your night, same thing, scrolling through. And it's like anything else. We as athletes know that what we put into our bodies matters tremendously from a health standpoint. And it's the same thing with our minds. Like if you, and the way that we're subconsciously influenced is incredible, right? Advertising works. Yeah. And so I think that there's that discontentment when you start scrolling through that stuff. So if you can create that space of going, no, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to pray, I'm going to visualize. Like we know these things from sports science and just psychology work, and they have massive influence. And like you said, of just having your priorities of, hey, I'm going to wake for 16 hours today. How am I going to move the needle? And what's the one priority or 1 through 3 priorities? Because especially someone in your situation where you're running multiple companies, I mean, your phone nonstop, your email nonstop, right? And, I'm super appreciative of you even, dedicating time to be on this podcast, because I think every entrepreneur and business owner knows our highest value is no longer monetary, right? It really is time. And so choosing how you invest that time to spend with people as opposed to just, turning your brain off, Netflixing and scrolling through it's huge. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely huge. Talk a little bit about refined craft. One of the things that I really caught on to on your website, and this is probably for all of your companies, is there's this big fallacy out there that it's either profit or purpose, right? It's like you're either a nonprofit and you're struggling to make money or to raise money, or you're just like this rich, greedy person. You're completely saying absolutely not. Right. We're doing both. Walk us through that.
No, that example of that we're making that transition into media and TV and stuff right now is the biggest example. We were on pace to double in our sales from last year through clothing. And now over the last 2 months, it's been a struggle getting sales to come through because my focus has been, all right, reshifting and staying on track for purpose, right? So with all of my companies, with Refined Craft, it's the same thing as Athletes Brand, but I wanted to get into music and acting and all this stuff. It's helping now basically every other influencer in the world be able to give back and have that platform.
Yeah, no, that's great. And talk a little bit about why you don't think you have to be a nonprofit. I think that this is an important thing for our audience to hear, especially as business owners and entrepreneurs. I think we get to a point where I see this a lot. Once a year I get together with a bunch of business owners and entrepreneurs, and this last group we were in Memphis and there were 70 of us there, and you're talking about people that are CEOs running public companies and massively successful. And a lot of that conversation is like this guiltiness of, okay, well, I make enough money. Should I transition to now running a nonprofit?
Man, no, I see what you're saying. I get asked this question all the time about, is Athletes Brand a 501c3? Then I would say no. That's why it's not, sort of thing. And because there are some reasons of why we should be a 501c3 without a doubt. But I really believe that if we can prove that you can make a lot more money and build a much bigger community by giving back and also helping the world, then I think that we can impact a lot of other businesses to do the same. And there is a complete misunderstanding out there that says that you have to be profit first, sort of thing. We need to figure out how to only make profit, sort of thing. But there's so many additional values to be able to create. First of all, what's your purpose beyond your profit? Every brand, every company, I don't care if you're a financial company or a clothing or a coat company, you need to have a purpose that's bigger than what your product is.
100%.
Use your product as a gateway to fulfill that purpose, and you're going to be able to create a better community around you. People are going to be able to buy into what you are, especially in today's age. People aren't just buying product anymore. People are buying people.
Yeah.
And so they want to know who's behind it, They want to know that Eric is the person that's running all their money, They want to know who you are, what you do, what your family's like, because they can find out those same things from 100,000 other people, and compete with you.
Yeah, we talk a lot about it at our company to that exact standpoint, we'll sit down and we'll tell our clients, no, our world is littered. There's 300,000 financial advisors, right? So there's pick of the litter.
Mm-hmm.
You can find at least a high level tier of, lots of companies that do great portfolio management. At the end of the day, that's just money's a tool to be used to help you be successful. And that's our mission statement is we want to help you make the greatest impact with your families, your community, and the world. Because at the end of the day, money is neutral. It's a tool. So our job is we happen to be a financial company that's using that avenue to help you live a purposely filled life that's going to have an impact and value. Because that's really what people want. They don't want just, I want to make more money, because it doesn't deliver.
Yeah.
It just doesn't deliver. And I think trying to help our own clients alter their mind of stewardship and investment in a way of investment's not just return on capital, it's impact.
Yeah.
And so we talk, that is our most important word in our company is impact. So you may not make the most amount of money, or you may not get a tax benefit because it's not a 501c3, but Jake Diekman changed that girl's life, right? And so I think your company is, that's incredible. Because we're an investment firm, we talked a little bit about investing on the podcast, is for you, can you think through when, we're asking the question, what's the one best investment that you've made personally? And that could be money, it could be time, it could be resources, it could be attention. When you think about investing, what comes to mind?
Biggest investment that I made personally is time. I mean, because I used to, when I started my company, I kind of took that same thought process of being an athlete to where the more hacks in the cage I'm taking, the better off I'm going to get. But that was wrong. That was the way that I was kind of brought through college. Was more work you get in, the better it's going to be off for you. It's the more quality work that you get in, the better off you're going to be. And so that's where I was when I started my company. I didn't fully understand that thought process of making sure that every minute, every hack, every thought is quality rather than just getting in a ton of work sort of thing, a ton of hours. I was trying to cut myself off to stop working at 5 o'clock. To have a real life, outside of my business, even though I love my business and I can do it all day long sort of thing. And it's really cool, but I know that I need to cut myself off to spend time with people, with friends, to be able to go do different things, get different experiences, to be able to step away from work. And so that was creating those hours. So I start off at 7 a.m. and go through that my morning routine process sort of thing. I'll go from 8 o'clock and into 5 o'clock and try to stop working at 5. Sometimes it'll be 6, 7, 8, depending on the days, but it used to be till 3, 4 in the morning. And then I get up at 9 and then do it again, And what I noticed is once I started cutting down how long that I was working, I was getting way more done. I was being more efficient with my time. I wasn't spending an hour every few hours now looking through social media and stuff. Now I hardly look through social media with any intention outside of work. When I'm on social media, it's all right, let's find some videos that we can repost to Athletes Brand page. Let's look at the analytics. That's my social media time now. And where it used to just be looking out, let's see what James is up to and see what Eric's up to, going through all this stuff. And so it's changing that process of figure out where to put your time, make every minute that you get within that time period quality. My brother, he owns a company called Carrot, and just got picked as the 19th fastest growing company in Oregon. He's crushing it right now. And he ends everybody's workday at 4 o'clock. And so it starts off with the same day, didn't change anything about that, but he's slowly bumping up when the work days end for everybody, because he's noticed that the quality of work that's being pushed out is better. When you're on a time crunch, a lot more gets done. Same thing with our Shirt for a Cause campaigns, like our legacy tees. We create 2-week campaigns, not because we want to sell limited edition shirts, but by doing 2-week campaigns, it puts a crunch time on the press.
Totally.
If it's something that's just available for the year, the press is just going to keep putting it off, and they're not going to participate. But if we say, hey, it's ending on the 23rd, our goal is 20 million people, and it's up to you and I to do this. All of a sudden it's, oh shoot, okay, let's get stuff done. If we put a work day in at 3 o'clock, I would probably get even more done. But
I think that, man, that's super helpful, and I think our audience, athlete, entrepreneur, really any individual, can value so much from that, because it's funny, there's the culture, right, that it's we talked a lot about this, of there's people that want to fake business and entrepreneurship and think it's about hacking life and not, looking like you're working but not actually working. Right. And there's this fear of like, oh my goodness, what if we let our employees off at 4? Well, if you find the right people, you're never going to have to convince them to work, right? And for most all high performers, it's the complete opposite. There's such a motivation and a drive to be a high performer and to achieve, that it's more of helping us to live purposefully with process. Exactly. And I think that's the thing of this fear mentality of like, oh, well, the 4-hour work week. Well, read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, and Tim Ferriss is going to tell you it's not working 4 hours, right? It's process, it's purpose. And I think that's huge, that just even as business owners and entrepreneurs to think of what's true on the micros is on the macros, is if you start to look at your employees as human beings and go, how do we help them be successful and valuable, and tie back to what they're doing to it? Is this their company? You don't have to grind them for 14 hours. Right. You can get the most out of them when they feel valued. And so that's huge.
There's a lot of old adages, man. It's misunderstandings of people that are afraid to advance. And it's the same reason why some of the biggest companies in the world are still having 40-year-old social media directors, trying to talk like they're 16-year-olds. Yep. And you can read through that stuff. And people, if you can be okay with trying to advance, and one big thing is marketing, like there's 2 massive companies I know of where basically they have one marketing person, not a marketing team, one marketing person. And the reason why all these businesses think that they have to have a marketing team, you guys all round table around and talk about what your ads are going to be, is because back in the 50s, during the Mad Men's era, they didn't have in-house marketing teams. They would hire marketing companies. Right. What Coke and all these big businesses did was, shoot, we can just bring those guys in here and not share them and have them share our trade secrets. So we'll just hire our own guys, put our own round tables together. Yeah. What they don't realize is that at those at those ad agencies, it was still one person running all of Ford's business there. They were just sitting down with the rest of the team saying, here's my ideas, yay, nay. Yeah. Yeah. You don't need a full marketing team. So be able to try to fight against the threat a little bit, like push the needle. Yeah. Be different, like try new things. You don't have to sit there and, like back in the 50s, if you said that you're letting people off at 3-4 o'clock and you're starting work at 9 o'clock, look at you and say you're going to go bankrupt next week. You know, like everybody's going to quit. Totally. But then you look at companies like Patagonia now where you don't have work hours. You just show up. If you get everything done on your list, and you're good. Yeah, I think Jason Fried at Basecamp, right? All of his employees are virtual. They're all over the place, and people are like, how do you do that? Or for our company is one of them that subscribes to, like, we've got no paid time off policy, right? It's literally get your work done, and you have as much time off as you need. And people are like, you're crazy. How do you do that? Trust. Like if you hire the right people, you clearly define what success looks like, what the expectations are, they're going to get their work done, and it's going to be a happier place. And I think something that you said is, we're afraid because a lot of times we're looking at our competitors or what our current industry does and goes, I'm trying to just be the best next to my comparative financial company or XYZ. And really what you can learn is trying to be from outside of that, putting your blinders on. Of course, you want to pay attention to certain industry things, but I think you've created companies that don't exist, right? And so you probably didn't have, I'm trying to be the best clothing company or the best XYZ. It's been fun to watch. If you can have a mindset where you don't really care, about failing, because that's the thing, is that like when you're breaking up with somebody, it's the fear of the unknown. It's not, you're having that disconnect, the soul to soul sort of thing that's being disconnected, but you're also afraid that you're going to be alone the rest of your life. You're afraid to get back into the dating game, all this stuff. And it's the same thing when going through businesses. Like, you're afraid that your company's going to fail. And that's why you hear these guys like Gary Vee and stuff say over and over and over, like, you can't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And that's because people are so afraid of starting a new idea, something that's not proven out there, all this stuff, because they don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know when this started for me, but I've never been afraid to fail. You know, like my senior year of high school, I transferred high schools just because we reclassified, and all of a sudden there's 5A, 6A, and I could go to a bigger school.
Yeah.
I went to our crosstown rival. In my head, that didn't seem like a big deal. You know, I had all the positives. I was going to learn business now, where I was at an ag school.
Yeah.
Going to play against bigger teams and bigger schools now. But
aren't you going to have friends?
Exactly.
It's a new school. And,
all of my friends looked at it that way.
Yeah.
It was, man, you don't know anybody over there. Like, there's so many reasons why not to.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But those few positives for me were good enough.
Yeah.
Same thing with transferring colleges. The same thing once, like, I played 1 month of professional baseball. 1 month, you know? And I was able to decide, after that being my goal since I was 6 years old, that I was going to, all right, well, I just discovered something that I'm passionate about now, and I don't think I'm ever going to find something that I'm going to be passionate about this way again. Yeah. And I understood that I'm not going to be great at either of them if I'm trying to build a business and I'm also trying to make it through the minor leagues, you know? So I quit baseball. And for a lot of, like, I know every baseball player listening is going to think, that's stupid. You obviously didn't like baseball or anything. Like, you're just going to quit like that. I love baseball. It's my life.
Yeah.
You know, but I weighed the pros and cons. 25 years of doing one thing, basically. I've spent 25 years now doing something completely different in business, and maybe 25 years after that, you can live another life. I don't know. Go be a philanthropist, or you can go start another company, or go live on Mars. I don't know.
I think it's great though, right? It's the very popular conversation of the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset of, if you start to look at failure more of just a teachable moment, as long as you're advancing and moving forward, it becomes less scary.
But don't let failure be okay. And I think that's a very common misconception too. Yeah, because I keep seeing these things come through on Instagram where you've got all these social influencers, like the entrepreneur influencers, that keep saying, like, failing's okay. Like, here's all the stats showing the first 1, 2, 3 businesses of every millionaires companies have failed. Screw that. Why not make your first business be successful? And if it doesn't, if it's not successful, if it fails because you had the intention of it being amazing, you might be a little bit more hurt because you thought it was going to be amazing. You weren't expecting failure, sort of thing. Yeah. Isn't that how it should be? Yeah. You know, I feel like that's what YMCA basketball is setting us kids up for right now by not keeping score. Yes. They're setting kids up to, when you fail, that's all right. There wasn't really that big of an. I was expecting it to be a tie.
I think it's totally on that mindset. I think of going back to Brandon Bouchard. He talks a lot about, let's clarify, failure is not, you know, I didn't put any of the work in, it failed and it's okay. Absolutely not. It's, if the result doesn't end up being what you want, but you nailed the process, right? Like, you actually put the hours in. You tried to educate yourself. Maybe the product didn't go to market. You A/B tested and the campaign didn't work. You test and you refine, you know, but I think there is that misnomer of, like, well, it should just happen. Yeah. And it's like, heck no. It's a detriment.
Make sure that you always learn from it. Like, that's the biggest thing is, if you fail at your business, or if you fail at anything, make sure you learn from it and don't let it happen again. Yeah. You know, if it happens again, now don't let it happen again. Like, really, don't let it happen again. Yeah. You learned twice. You failed twice. So same exact thing. Like, same thing if you ask somebody to do something or they ask you to do something and you do it wrong and you screw up, you know, then if they ask me to do it again, I'm not going to screw up that time. Yeah. Like, I know that in my head because I've already screwed up, and that just ate at me for a while trying to figure out, all right, why did I screw up? Because I don't know, a bunch of different million reasons, you know? Yeah. But I'm going to make sure that reason, I'm not going to screw up at that again. That's what people just take away from failing is don't think failing's okay, but learn from every failure. Right. You know, you don't have to dwell on everything, move forward. Yeah. But in the past.
Yeah. But don't repeat the past.
Don't repeat it.
You know? Yeah.
Don't look back.
As we're kind of closing in on time, which it's been a fun conversation, one of the things I wanted to hit on, and I think it goes around to the people you surround yourself with, talk about mastermind group, talk about campfire, like, you know, it's a coming soon kind of deal. this is both to athletes and entrepreneurs, why mastermind groups, why campfire? Tell us about that.
Man, meeting new people has been one of the most powerful things in my life. And not just like, when I started to get into business, having my brother as a mentor was an amazing opportunity for me, because we're in two very, very different industries. He's in real estate and tech. I'm in clothing and sports, like we're not gonna cross paths. So when we get a chance to meet each other's peers in our industries, we're able to think about things in very, very different ways. So starting my podcast, I didn't care about having a podcast or anything like that. I just knew that my brother knew a bunch of people that I wanted to meet, and I knew a bunch of people he wanted to meet, and I know a bunch of people that I probably won't ever get to work with, sort of thing. So why not be able to come and pick their brains? Yeah. Like, that was the purpose for it. Like, it's just sit down. We call it a little mastermind, what the Success podcast is, and that's because it's just a chance to learn from people, learn different ideas. So we had Paul Konerko and Kyle Park on. Kyle Park's a Red Dirt Texas country singer, and Konerko played with the White Sox for a long time. We had those two on because they're from different backgrounds. Yeah. So when you can learn how to be successful as a country music star, and see the correlations of how it was to become successful as a baseball player, but also to see the different ways to look at things. Because every baseball player, you're going to listen and you're going to know that as old-timer baseball coaches that you've dealt with, most of it's typically the same. It's rare that you're going to get something completely different, completely wild, But that's because they've been taught by baseball players, and their teachers were taught by baseball players, and all the way down the line. So when you can step over now and learn how a chef became successful, or learn how a financial advisor became successful, right? Learn these different backgrounds, you're going to be able to really expand your way of thinking. One of the best and oldest ways to get creative juices going is to flip something over. Yeah. Like if you've got a picture, a drawing you're trying to do, and you're stuck, you hit a roadblock, flip it over, look at it from a different perspective, right? If you're designing a shoe, you don't look at it with just the flat foot on the ground. If you hit a roadblock on your creative mind, flip it over, upside down. Try to design something cool from a different angle. Yeah. That's great. So specifically on the campfire thing, I looked online and it's invitation only, so you don't even have to spill the beans. But one of the things is, where can everybody find you online? Where do they interact with you personally, with your different companies? Yeah, I'll give a little bit on Campfire before I get into that. I haven't even told Renee, an assistant, about it yet. See, I'm on the inside scoop. The power of Google, which people don't use as much as you think they do. Yeah. So Campfire, this will be our third year doing it. Okay. It has been a very kind of hush-hush thing. It always will be. But it's gathering basically the top 20 to 25. I would say it's really the top 20. We bring in 5 guests. Typically people that have been on my podcast come speak and talk to them. We go out into the woods and just have a conversation around a campfire for about 3 days. And it's a chance to network with one another. The people that are there is a mixture between some of the top CEOs and business people in the world, and athletes. So just great minds is the goal for it. We always try to collect the 20 best minds that would be able to be cohesive together. People that wouldn't create confliction within the group, sort of thing. Yeah. Get out, ride ATVs, go fishing, hiking, all this stuff together. Get to share moments together. That creates real bonds and real networking opportunities. Then we go through some workshop sort of stuff, and then also host these campfire talks. And the purpose of the word campfire and all this is because some of the biggest movements in our world's history, some of the biggest battles, some of the biggest tactics were all created around a campfire, with your boots off and whiskey pouring and people talking about, all right, here's our ideas. They're a little bit more loose, when you're in that environment for some reason, whatever it be, whether it's because that's where our roots are from hundreds of thousands of years ago, I don't know. But that's the purpose for it, is because we want an intimate environment. We want to bring together people that are very big thinkers and try to think of ways that can improve their personal lives or business lives, and share everybody's stuff. Like, it's stuff that's being shared in there that is very, very in-depth NDAs.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a very open environment where you can talk about anything, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, if you want to be considered to be in it, just email me. It's just Kyle@athletesbrand.com. Then to jump in on like social media stuff, all of Athletes Brand stuff is just @Athletes Brand. We're mainly on Instagram. Same thing as my personal one is Kyle Mauch, Mauch. Same thing on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Refined Craft, same thing. @Refined Craft on Instagram, all that stuff. Athletes Brand is for athletes and people in sports. Refined Craft is for entrepreneurs, actors, musicians, artists, and creatives. But yeah, feel free to reach out and love chatting with people. So
awesome. Well, thanks for the time, man. We really enjoyed having you on, and look forward to talking more.
No, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's really cool.
Thank you so much for listening to the Athlete CEO podcast. I hope you enjoyed our show today and are ready to take action on the advice from today's episode. Our goal with the Athlete CEO podcast is to make it the go-to resource for athletes and entrepreneurs looking to take their game to the next level. Love the show? You have any suggestions on how we can improve? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, tweet, and share your thoughts. We do our best to read every single one. We'll see you next week with another world-class episode.